What is up, wrestling fans? It is that time of the week for the FLZ Wrestling Team to talk all things pro wrestling and call it right down the middle. That's right, it's time for this week's edition of FLZ Wrestling Presents 607 TWS, The Wrestling Show. And of course, we are live on the Fanlight Zone YouTube, Twitch, and X. I am your host. My name is Rich. Joining me in the co-pilot's chair, as she does each and every week, she is the hunter of the Pokemons because she's got to catch them all. She is also the aficionado of all things cosplay. But for this show, more importantly, she is the pro wrestling connoisseur. She's the first lady of Fanlight Zone Wrestling. It is Miss Sammy. How are you tonight?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on again each and every week.
Yes.
Good to see you both.
Yeah, and joining me in the co-pilot's chair again, because peek behind the curtain, by the way, folks. There's always things happening here at Fanlight Zone, and we are a small outfit. Peek behind the curtain. We just did an interview that we got off with, which is going to be super fun, that we'll be dropping on Monday with an awesome guest. I don't do. Can I give the guest away or no? It's live.
Let's just say this: we will announce who the guest is on social media tomorrow.
There you go. Ken wants to keep it dumb. But anyways, literally did the run-in coming in like within a minute. So he had no other choice but to be on this show this week. He is the, of course, host and producer of the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour podcast, better known as the ODPH. He is the CEO and EIC of FanlightZone.com. But here, you know him as just another talking head talking some pro wrestling that you can hear each and every week. Well, this past couple of weeks, each and every week. And you're definitely coming in complete stereo audio. It is Ken M.
It is loud in the microphone, but you can hear us, and we want to hear from you. So chat, super chat, lurkers, whoever is joining in the show. We want to talk pro wrestling with you, so make your voice heard. We're on Twitch, we're on YouTube, we're on all the great places, as you can see. So make sure you drop that subscription. Make sure you hit the like. Let us know that you want to see more pro wrestling. Last week's episode, you definitely made your voice heard, so we want to see that again. And let's get that pro wrestling talk, because there's a lot of stories that we got to talk about as we are in a very big season of pro wrestling.
Yeah, we got a little potpourri this week. We got a little jumping around. We got a little things to do. So this one really can take shape. So super chat, drop some stuff in there, because listen, this one's going to be more of a, what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to be more of a like a wild stream doing whatever the hell it wants to do on the show, because obviously we are in Wrestlemania season, so we're probably going to start off by talking about Wrestlemania and what's going on there. However, there is also a lot of other news that we want to touch on, including some NXT news, what's going on over on TNA, and I know because Miss Sammy really wanted to talk about it, we got some WCW talk to talk about at the end of the show. That's right, it's coming back, by the way. After all, VCAM did buy it, so he's bringing it back. No, that's a joke. I promise that's not happening. Next thing you know, one of the dirt sheets is going to pick up that's a reality. The WCW's return.
Fanlight Zone said.
Fanlight. I'm going to get quoted like I know I have an inside source. I promise it was a joke. Anyways, but it is an anniversary of an infamous night of wrestling. So we'll talk about that a little later. But let's dive in. Let's talk about some Wrestlemania, because we have every week a Road to Wrestlemania update. A couple big, the biggest story, of course, in Wrestlemania. We still the main event, night 2 main event, CM Punk, Roman Reigns. We had another chapter written on Monday Night Raw that I actually think there's a lot of great context to. You know, CM Punk doing what CM Punk does best, poking the bear, bringing out the Usos, poking Jey Uso because he's a hothead lately, and bringing out the tribal chief. And then the tribal chief not looking so tribal chief, as he looks like he was taking some orders from one Jey Uso to take out CM Punk. And we ended the scene after CM Punk gets destroyed by the OTC with CM Punk laughing and saying that this is his plan the whole time. Interesting. I know your take on it, Ken, was a little bit Joker. Go for it.
Yeah, I think where CM Punk's trying to go with his storyline is he wants to be the Joker to Roman Reigns' Batman. And it's an interesting take. I mean, you think about their history and how they've been kind of doing the slow play for this, obviously, since Survivor Series. It just seems like that's where Punk is going with it. But I don't know if it's connecting per se, unless he thinks it's going to drive a wedge between him and Jey Uso, and then that breaks him away. But I don't know how that plays out, because I think it ties into too much of the old bloodline storyline for me to be hooked on that.
Yeah. Sammy, what was your takeaway watching Roman and CM Punk out there on Raw?
Well, it's a lot of conversation that's been talked about with Roman Reigns for a long time. I mean, his Achilles heel is basically Seth Rollins, someone who can just get in your head and live rent free. And CM Punk is just running the playbook, and it makes sense because Punk's greatest rival in WWE has been Seth Rollins, so he's just running the same playbook against him, and it's working perfectly. Going into this, we kind of all speculated that Roman Reigns was probably going to walk away with a win at WrestleMania. And while I still feel like that is the case, the meter has moved much closer. It's more like 60 Roman, 40 Punk at this point, and that needle's moved a lot, which makes this very exciting. It's definitely something that going into it a couple months ago, Royal Rumble season, we were kind of like, okay, yes, this is your night 2 main event. But now it's really starting to feel like a proper night 2 main event. And that's awesome. That's great for wrestling.
I agree with that. Although I will say this, I mean, we haven't gotten into talking too much about it. I've actually always believed that this is CM Punk's match to win. I think that this is very muchly set up to, last year he got to be in his first main event, which was the triple threat match. This year he gets to be in his first solo main event, which is the actual night 2. So the big main event. So he's been in both nights' main events. And I think that this is meant to be the big win, because as remember last year, he slipped on the banana peel.
Yeah.
The big Paul Heyman banana peel. So I feel like if you're going to give him that big WrestleMania moment and win, and once again, it doesn't hurt Roman, because you can still tell stories of Roman, and Roman seems to be happy with the attraction. Roman has become, and I've said this before, Roman is still the big box office draw. Do not get that confused. Roman is still the biggest draw in pro wrestling. This is not a slight on anybody's favorite wrestler. It is just facts, and the thing is, and it's not even a problem, is he looks at that spot much like the Undertaker looked at that spot, and that's being an attraction. So you get to see Roman in the big matches on the big nights, and that is what I think that is needed from him. I'm not saying he's never going to be champion again, and they could pull the trigger and make him champion. I'm just saying he doesn't necessarily need the belt, because at this point in juncture, I feel like Roman has transcended being a champion. That sounds wild to say, but think about it. The Undertaker didn't need to be champion. John Cena didn't need to be champion. I don't think actually Roman needs to be champion.
No, I don't think so either. In fact, I even think Punk wins. This promo shifted my thoughts that I think that he is going to win at WrestleMania, just for the simple fact that with Roman is now making the break to Hollywood per se, and not saying that he's leaving pro wrestling, but I think that he's now becoming that weird Undertaker role, like you mentioned, the Brock Lesnar special appearance role. You don't need him in a main storyline, because okay, if he beats Punk, where do we go? Yeah, I mean, he's a main event no matter whenever he comes in. But like I said, you don't need him in that per se on TV every week, because after this, it's like, where do you go from here? Unless you're going to try running it back between him and Jey Uso because of reasons, or like I say, it's just a little more cloudy there. With Punk, you have more storylines to go from after WrestleMania if you want to. So that's why I kind of think this promo is going, because a lot of this has just been Punk getting his butt kicked every week at the end of Raw. Like eventually he's got to turn the table somewhere to not make this feel like it's going to be a one-sided affair. Otherwise, he's going to win hands down at Mania. And like I say, I don't want to go in there thinking it's going to be predictable, but after this past week, that's where I'm leaning. Like where Sammy was saying 60-40 for Roman, I'm saying 60-40 Punk.
Well, that's still a good place to be. No matter what, it's a good place to be, because now you don't know. You could do either or, and they're not booked into a corner. You don't have to go, oh, Roman has to win, or oh, Punk has to win, and this is why X, Y, and Z. You do have a lot of wiggle room. I'm just going from a business aspect. Why not have your cake and eat it too?
Yeah.
You can give CM Punk his moment. You can give CM Punk the championship, so we can go on to have matches. We still have unfinished business with Seth Rollins, who got injured, unfortunately, and now we know he's back. We still have unfinished business that we can go back to with Drew McIntyre. Who is still, even though, got bumped from the main event, or, the scene at WrestleMania, is still a big time player. And then there's still everything else there. And Roman, no matter what, you can make an announcement the Friday before a pay-per-view that Roman Reigns is having a match in the main event of any pay-per-view. And there's not a fan that's going to be like, I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day,
Yeah, I mean, I'm the biggest CM Punk fan in the world. I want him to walk away with this. His title run, kind of started off in weird terms because of the situation, but
Mhm.
it's grown into something really good, and I'm really enjoying it. I think it's got plenty of legs. I think the reason why that number is still higher is just because of WWE and their creative bankruptcy. And what do you do when you don't know what to do? Just give the belt to Roman, or you give the belt. Back in the day, it was give the belt to Cena. Now it's give the belt to Roman. So we've seen creative cleaning up some of that. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying it's 100% better, but we have seen trending the correct direction on a lot of fronts. So maybe this is the maybe we get another summer of Punk in a way, and not telling that story. Just Punk gets a nice long title run, and let's be honest, this is probably his last one. And a win over Roman really elevates his stock even higher as he does reach towards the end of his career. And it's like, you know, WrestleMania main event winner, winning over Roman Reigns. That person who does get to retire him, since we love retiring those guys, that's a big feather in their cap.
Yeah, I still think that's a ways away, only because like listening to Roman Reigns when he was, this was going back a little bit, but when he was on Stephanie McMahon's podcast, he had brought up the fact that he wanted to be the first WWE superstar who did movies. And what he meant by that is not leaving the role. And like, yes, it means that he, like, obviously he's not there as much. He has been a part-timer. However, he still is in a very big active role. Like he is still the draw. And there's no doubt about that. And everybody else who's gone on to Hollywood had to leave wrestling and could not be the draw anymore. And I think that he actually takes some real pride in that. So I don't think we're going to see him leaving anytime soon, unless God forbid, something, it happens injury-wise, illness-wise, or something like that. Because I think that he's very much locked into doing something that nobody else has done. Although, let's be honest, I think he's going to get a lot more movie roles. Look at him. He's Jason Momoa with, a perfect smile, which just still throws me off, Roman. I love you, but those perfect teeth are a little, it's a little upsetting because they're perfect. They're too perfect. But anyways, I think that this, no matter how you look at this, I think that this did a huge amount to a main event that we were already looking forward to, because now you really have doubt with who's going to walk out of Mania. You now really have like this whole thing, and we were worried about it because Roman's obviously not going to be there every week. How are you going to tell this story and make it, yeah, we understand on paper you have one of the greatest of all time versus the guy in Roman Reigns. So obviously on paper, the star power is there. The draw is there. However, how are you going to make it interesting? And they have found a way, giving them credit. And now, mind you, I don't all put this on creative because let's be honest, Roman and Punk have a lot of leeway with their own creative. And that they're involved. Also, Paul Heyman's involved behind the scenes. So he has a lot of input on the creative of Roman and CM Punk. So you have three really good minds right now really putting their efforts together to make this a great main event. And that's why we're getting some stories, because I saw the layering in there. The layering in there is definitely a Roman Paul Heyman bit with the bloodline. There was some definite layering, because I'm telling you, it's not accidental that Jey Uso was barking orders at Roman Reigns. And what are the repercussions for barking orders at the OTC? How is he going to take that? Because we know CM Punk, who's laughing like a hyena on the ground, is obviously going to be like, oh, now you listen to your young boy. Because he's been calling Roman his young boy. Which is great. It's a great amount of disrespect. It's a great inside term for disrespect. And it does touch back to the fact that the Shield was brought in to be Punk's, muscle, if you will. So it makes sense, and it's based in stuff. So now he can look at it like, hey, listen, like I don't listen to you because you're my young boy, but you listen to your young boy. That's wild to me. Why are you listening to your young boy? And can the OTC's ego take that? Because let's be honest, his ego is his downfall.
It's a great storyline piece. And if they really want to split the Usos up, which I'm all right with, this is a great way to kind of put Jay in a main event position, per se, with a new persona. Because like I say, I think the Yeet movement is slowing down a little bit. So you have to do something to freshen him up. And if you give him a heel run, I think that could do wonders.
Agree. And especially if you put him out there with Roman. Once again, it's an instant draw. It's an instant draw. Speaking of things that we got the next chapter. We are definitely on the hot streak, and I know that Sammy will be happy about this. We're on the hot streak. Dominic Mysterio, Finn Balor, WrestleMania.
Yes.
I mean, it's not been confirmed technically, but let's be honest. Raw kind of gave you all the confirmation you needed. How are you feeling knowing that we're most definitely, I'm going to throw it out there. It's a lock. We're going to get Dominic Mysterio, Finn Balor at WrestleMania.
Yeah, I'm excited for this. I mean, it doesn't bring the end of the Judgment Day. The Judgment Day is just going to re-evolve into something else. However, it's time. It's time. It's time for this match to happen. I don't think it matters who really wins. I think Finn has done enough this year, besides just winning a big kind of profile match. But even if he doesn't win this one, I think he could get into Money in the Bank. I think he can get into King of the Ring and win something like that, and then really get his stock back up to being, at that top of the card. And again, which would be refreshing for him, refreshing for that main event scene, and would be good. And Dom, if we did this a year ago, we figured Finn would walk away the heel and Dom would be the face, but it's completely flipped. And I'm fine with that. Dom does really well in that heel role. He should continue doing it. He's still growing. He's still a young talent. And it's a little bit of like protecting him. And there's nothing wrong with that at that stage. You play to your strengths, you try to limit your weaknesses, and just go from there. So I think this is going to be good. The card needs to fill out for WrestleMania.
Mhm.
This is an excellent choice for it.
This is definitely a great undercard match on the card for WrestleMania. I believe that.
The only thing I have issue with, I would have loved for this to have been for the IC title. Nothing against Penta or his run, but if this was Finn winning the IC title, I think that would have amplified this even more.
But I think you have a great opportunity, as I've said before here. Make it for the Mega Championship.
Yeah.
If you're putting over AAA the way they are, you can showcase the top belt in AAA on the biggest show or the biggest wrestling show of the year. And that's not taking by the way, people, it's not taking shots. A little bit of WrestleMania is the biggest show of the year.
Oh,
you have to call it what it is. So if that's the case, why not have the AAA Mega Championship defended on the show? And since Dom has the belt, unless he loses it between now and then, it's a great way to have it showcased on the show with a super over Dominic Mysterio. He's the heel you love to hate. And now with Finn Balor being back as Finn Balor, it's perfect. And I mean, you never know. Yeah. WrestleMania could be a good sighting for the Demon, right?
Yeah, it'd be huge.
That's an over point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you don't really need to add too much more to this, but if they want to do the Demon against Dom, like
just for the pop.
The entrances alone are going to be, chef's kiss.
By the way, Dom's entrances have been great at WrestleMania.
Yes.
He has done a great job, especially the time when he came out arrested.
Yes.
Straight from jail. I loved it. Like I said, I'm a big fan of who would have thunk it, a few years back when we were constantly coming on, whether it was me and Ken or me and Sammy or the three of us, just really bashing the hell out of Dominic Mysterio, and rightfully so, to now being like, man, and one of the MVPs of the company.
Yeah, period. I mean, like I say, that time down in NXT really paid off, and now look at him.
Well, not just that. It's just he's now getting it. For some reason, he's firing on this different level. For when he started embracing being a heel, it just took off for him. It's like something clicked and he got it.
And embracing embracing his father, Eddie Guerrero.
There you go.
And it's a joke, but it's also true. I mean, it's really worked for him. He couldn't be the next Ray, but he could be the next Eddie, and there's nothing wrong with that.
It's perfect. It's perfect. And I mean, he has, and when you have him in the interviews where he talks about making sure that he's paying homage to Ray and also Art Barr, which a lot of people aren't even familiar with Art Barr, who was, tag team partners with Eddie Guerrero for many years. And this is a perfect way to bring the two of them together, and it's wonderful. And like I said, he's going to be in there with Finn Balor. I expect a great WrestleMania match between the two.
Yes.
And once again, it builds a strong undercard, and we had some of that going on. Before we move off of WrestleMania talk, let's talk about the last thing, and that, of course, is the other night's main event, which I still hope they pull the trigger on Liv and Stephanie, because I rather that is the main event, just because I think the two of them deserve it. But we know Cody Rhodes has to get into a main event somehow. Although I'll be honest, the story has picked up a little bit this last week on SmackDown without having Cody there. We got a Matt Cardona sighting.
Yeah.
And a jelly roll again sighting. I'm loving the jelly roll stuff on wrestling. I don't know. Your thoughts about where Randy's going with this? I know we speculated on last week. We still don't know who the person on the phone is, but we're getting more old school Orton, and I'm in for it.
What if it's Danhausen? See, I gotta do my hand gestures to start cursing. No, in all honesty, I love the fact they did this with Randy Solo, and this is just his obsession with the belt. Him taking out Cardona is a great move, and him with Jelly Roll too, because Jelly Roll is bringing an audience in to get more fans excited about WrestleMania. So this is nothing but a big bucket of win for the business side of things. And for Randy, everybody still treats him as the face in this equation because they're waiting to see him beat Cody. and make history. And then for who's on the phone, it's Arn Anderson. I'm just calling it right now. It has to be Arn.
Glock Anderson, baby. Let's go. Sammy, your thoughts on the story building between Randy and Cody Rhodes?
It does feel a little rushed, and obviously that's because of just the timing. And Rich, you and I, and Ken, you as well, we talked at length about this. This didn't need to be this way. This could have been done differently, but here we are. And they've made it a really strong effort to make it work and get everyone invested in it. So I think people are invested in it, and we know it's going to be a night one main event because they're just going to do it. And it's grown to something worthy. They've added enough intrigue in it, and it's going to be a good question of if whether or not people will really embrace Randy as a heel, because they're definitely leaning into it that way. But everyone's been singing his song for so long now. It's at that point, can you really do it, and can you really do it in this limited amount of time?
I mean, you're never going to get everybody.
Right, and does it really matter? Not. Right, it doesn't really matter, but it helps. It helps just tell the story.
I think he'll get his heel heat. Don't you worry. He's Randy Orton at the end of the day. He can get emotions out of anybody that he wants to, and that's one of the things that makes him one of the greatest of all time.
Yep.
Quite frankly. However, yes, people are still going to sing the music, and people are still going to cheer him. He's just going to be that cool heel. You get to that point in juncture where you're never going to be a pure heel because just shy. I mean, I guess you could get him there, but he's probably going to have to hit Mama Rhodes with a steel chair to get there. And it's not beyond Randy to do it.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't
maybe
need to.
Randy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. People might cheer for him. He might turn full babyface if he hits Brandy, and that's not because I dislike Brandy. But think about it: Brandy gets treated a little differently from the wrestling fandom, so he could have turned full face. Mama Rhodes, on the other hand, not the same.
No, like I say, he's gonna wind up in that Austin role.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Like I say, that's where he's heading to. Like I say, he's the bad guy that does bad things, but everybody cheers for him. So it's like, what do you expect?
Let's switch
gears. If you get segments with him with Kurt Angle and playing guitar and everything like that, what? I'm good for that.
Well, let's switch gears. We're going to stay in WrestleMania, but there has been Hall of Fame announcements, so we're going to go with that. Of course, the 2026 class, we had 3 people announced already. Stephanie McMahon, AJ Styles, and Demolition will take their rightful places in the WWE Hall of Fame. By the way, there was an announcement. Stephanie McMahon will be inducted by The Undertaker. So The Undertaker will be actually inducting Stephanie McMahon into the Hall of Fame, which is fitting. Some people would have been like, why doesn't her husband? Well, that would make too much. Like, don't have her husband do it. I don't think Triple H should be inducting anybody because he's behind the scenes and we all know what he's doing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Let him do what he's doing. However, Is
Taker going to put her on the symbol and like lower her down?
Well, think about
that will be referenced. Mark my words. That'll get referenced.
They better have it in the ring. Just have the symbol in the ring. So we do have some additions, though. One for the main show will be the Celebrity Ward is getting a new Hall of Famer, and it is known that Rodzilla, that's right, Dennis Rodman will be a WWE Hall of Famer. Also, he's announced for the NBA Hall of Fame. He's going to double Hall of Fame this year.
I mean,
crazy, right?
It's wild to think, but I mean, it makes sense.
I'm good with it.
Yeah, I mean, he was in a pay-per-view main event for WCW.
Yes, he was. A couple of them. So. Yeah, I mean, this makes sense for the celebrity wing, so no issues with this. Your thoughts on Dennis Rodman entering the Hall, Sammy?
No, I love this. I think it's great, and it's been nice over the years seeing WWE properly embrace WCW. Something we'll talk about a little bit later, but celebrities are very, very big in wrestling right now, and Rodman was one of the biggest for a long period of time. I mean, think of if you go, and we'll get into it later, but he was appearing on Nitro like during the NBA finals. Like that was massive at the time. So I love this.
By the way, if you guys didn't already know, 5-time NBA champion, and he wrestled in World Championship Wrestling as a member of the New World Order. And we all know the NWO is
for life.
And yes, a couple different main events, one of which was him and Hulk Hogan versus Diamond Dallas Page and Karl Malone.
Yeah, Hog Wild.
You're damn right. All right, we have 2 legacy ones going in, and I love the legacy, but I always hate the legacy because they never get the time, whether the families or the wrestlers themselves. But I am super excited for both, although the one probably would no show it anyways. If you know about indie wrestling, you know about it, and I'm going to start with him as Psycho Sid will be entering the WWE Hall of Fame as a legacy member. 2 2-time WWF champion, 2-time WCW World Heavyweight champion, and a 1-time WCW United States champion. Of course, the man who ruled the world, and more importantly, the man that is twice the man that I am, but half the man that you are. Anyways, or that's half the brains that you do.
Yeah.
Listen, thing of legend. Sammy, your thoughts on Psycho Sid entering the Hall of Fame?
Certainly kind of worthy of it. Definitely worthy, but I'm sure you're right. He's probably got a softball tournament he's got to attend, so he's not going to be able to make it. And that's fine. That's totally fine.
Historically, he does not make it to indie bookings, but he doesn't. I don't know if he returns the money or not. Allegedly,
well, like I say, in a figure in pro wrestling in his time, one that really made the power bomb cool. To be honest with you,
absolutely.
And then you think about his time as Sid Justice in WWE, where him and Hulk Hogan were having a little program, and then that main event where Undertaker won his first world title. So you have to really put that in perspective. Like, he does have a legacy there, and I mean, definitely well worth the induction this year.
Yes, I do understand our jokes are jokes because he did pass away, but it's okay, folks. It was a joke. It was more basing on the fact that he did miss a lot of shows, and we do
one of the most gruesome wrestling
injuries
recorded. Yeah,
I try forgetting about that all the time.
Yeah, and like I said, I wish he would have gone in the Hall. Like, in all seriousness, all joking aside, by the way, I wish he would have gone in the Hall when he was alive.
Yeah, agreed.
I always hate when guys miss the Hall of Fame when they're alive, especially when they deserve it. He did have the stats for a Hall of Famer, one of the greatest big men to do it, especially in the time. And to think, and once again, all jokes aside, to think what he could have done if he was all in on wrestling, because he always kind of had one foot out the door, because as we joke about softball Sid and stuff. But once again, let's get back to seriousness. There's another late great on the legacy one that I just think deserved to be in a long time before.
Amazing.
And of course, in WWE, he was known as Bad News Brown, and he was known as Bad News Allen everywhere else. If you don't know, if you're not familiar with him, he was the 1976 Olympic bronze medalist in judo. He was also a 2-time Pan American Games gold medalist, 1967 and 1975, respectively. He was a 4-time Stampede Wrestling North American heavyweight champion. And last but not least, he was trained by Antonio Inoki in Japan and the legendary Stu Hart in the dungeon in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. So, legit tough guy, legit badass. Give Haku a run for his money.
Yep.
There is I'm not going to go into too many details, but there is a famous story of Bad News Allen having a bus for New Japan pull over and challenging Andre the Giant to come outside and fight him, to which Andre refused to leave the bus to fight Bad News Brown. So if you didn't think he was a badass, he is absolutely a badass. If you ever go into that, there's a deeper story to that, which we won't dive into. But if you're going to make the 8th wonder of the world stay on a bus scared, you're a bad mofo. I think he's super underrated. Most people remember his career in WWF as the winner of the WrestleMania 4 Battle Royal, where he double-crossed Bret the Hitman Hart. He did work a program with Hulk Hogan, but of course, I think his biggest moment or most infamous moment would have been WrestleMania 6 against Roddy Piper, where we got the controversial hot rod and hot scotch segment. We won't dive into that too much, because obviously, if you know, you know. If not, look it up and you'll find out all you need to know. But once again, legitimate badass. And also a legitimate, amazing pro wrestler. Go back and look at some of his work in the Calgary Stampede days. Wrestling future Hall of Famer, and best there ever will be, Bret the Hitman Hart. Ken, I know you're a big Bad News fan. Obviously, he's the late great. I wish he was there to talk, but what are your thoughts?
Amazing pick, amazing induction, legit badass. Like, you think about someone who literally was their character. That was Bad News Brown. And his time in WWF, like, he was a heel, but he was a great character. I always thought that he should have got the title and made a run, and especially at the time, he's the one that invented the Enziguri as a finisher, and that just looked so amazing to watch. So, like I say, this is well deserving. I'm super excited to finally see him get into the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. Sammy, any thoughts on Bad News Brown?
Yeah, I mean, just to echo what everyone else has already said, just sad that he can't be there to give a speech and talk about his time in wrestling and everything. Because I guess what it boils down to, in terms of WWE, maybe he wasn't totally Hall of Fame worthy, but you got to look at the body of your, one's entire career. I mean, just a hyper athlete, at a time where wrestling wasn't just all WWF, WWE. There were other places that were legit. There were other places that were bigger at certain points. So definitely worthy of the induction. And it's a good thing that we'll at least get to talk about him, hear about him, but I wish we could hear from him.
I wish he wasn't a legacy, like I said, because I wish he was still alive. But also, it kind of is as bad as it sounds, it's kind of a good thing because it'd probably be Bret Hart that inducted him. And Bret on a live microphone nowadays.
Yeah,
the salt would be pouring from the rafters.
Who do you think he would complain about more, Shawn Michaels or Bill Goldberg?
Goldberg, because I mean he brings up Shawn now as I think just a way to say something different because the greatest hits have been Bill Goldberg, but outside of that, I think it would be Goldberg all day. Not to drift too far away because it's still related. You guys remember the segment on WCW where Sid Vicious's car was crushed by Bill Goldberg and he's outside like jumping on the car?
WCW was a very, very interesting time.
We'll be talking
Sorry,
about
everyone. I want to talk WCW.
Yeah. We know. And chat, super chat, definitely throw your thoughts in about WCW too. We'll catch up to him when we get to that point in the show. But yeah, there's a lot of history there, a lot of wild segments to say the least over the course of that promotion's tenure.
Oh yeah. Speaking of which, let's switch gears here. Let's switch over and talk about the current reigning and undisputed AEW World Champion. And he's not making news for AEW. No. He's making news because he's going to be on an indie show taking on Nick Nemeth, TNA Wrestling. So we're going to have a TNA wrestler against MJF. That'll be for Create a Pro, which is Brian Myers' company. Mm-hmm. It'll be a monumental moment in Melville, New York, on Friday, May the 1st. And so MJF basically said, just hit me up and said, this clown's down to throw hands. See ya there, Nikki. Of course, Nick Nemeth has been kind of critical on air on Busted Open about MJF. And MJF basically told him he's a glorified mid-carder. Once again, a lot of this, I'm sure, is work, but it is caught the media. Mm-hmm. Your thoughts, Miss Sammy?
Nick Nemeth is not a glorified mid-carder. He had some incredible highs in WWE, and unfortunately injuries kind of derailed him at times. And that's a tale as old as time in wrestling. However, to see the cross promotion between, TNA and AEW, it's nice. It's nice that, AEW guys still do that. It's nice that, TNA guys, they still travel around and such. I think that's great. I think this is great for wrestling. It's certainly great for the internet. We get to eat it all up with all these, tweets back and forth and interviews and everything. So that's a lot of fun. This is good for wrestling. This is really good for wrestling.
Before you talk, Ken, I just want to point out that Brian Myers went to X to talk about the announcement, which actually was today, and said, I've talked to both parties involved and they've mutually agreed to settle this. Not many dream matches left out there in professional wrestling, but this is certainly one of them. At Creative Pro Wrestling is proud to officially announce May 1st, Melville, New York, MJF Nick Nemeth. By the way, it was not a glorified mid-carder. The exact line from the AEW World Champion was a delusional, jealous, overhyped mid-card guy. Ken, your thoughts?
I have to agree. This is a dream indie match. I mean, we never thought we'd see these two go at it because obviously they've been in different federations for their time. But this is an exciting way to make the internet work in your favor. This is going to be a fun match. And like I say, this is going to be something we can be excited about for the indie crowd. So I definitely want to check this out.
I will definitely be excited to see this one. I do want to point out though, Nick Nemeth, I got some bad news for you, kid. The picture for the event has MJF holding the AEW World Championship and listed as AEW World Heavyweight Champion. You are doing the JOB, son, because he is not being allowed to be advertised with that belt and do a loss. By the way, that is just normal wrestling business. That is not an AEW thing. That is not a Tony Khan thing. That is not a slight on them. But if you feature somebody with a title belt, you better damn well match sure they went over. I could share a story from Excite Wrestling, but I'll say if you go back to the annals of time, there was a match where we booked Matt Hardy versus one Johnny Gargano, and on the poster we put Johnny Gargano as the Dragon Gate USA champion, which he was. And Gabe Sapolsky had a phone call to Moose, like, you can't lose that match, right? And that wasn't even AEW. So it's just kind of like a time-honored thing. You don't put somebody else's belt on your poster and have them take the pinfall. So, do we really expect Nick Nemeth in 2026 to defeat MJF?
No. I mean, unless he was going to go sign with AEW, and then that's a whole different ball of wax. But like I say, this is going to be a fun thing that's based off, his comments, and the internet's running wild with it, which, listen, is exciting to see those two have a professional feud, if I can use that word.
I like it. All right, let's switch gears.
Yep.
Let's switch gears again. Well, actually, let's stay with AEW for a brief moment. Dynasty has taken shape. We got I never understand this. Tony Khan, I love you. I mean that. Please let me back in, but I love you and I love what you've been doing. But I've never understood why they give away main event quality matches as the opening to Dynamite. And the reason I say that is because then you give no incentive to watch the whole show. And this week they opened Dynamite with a main event quality match anywhere in the world on any pay-per-view for any promotion, Swerve Strickland versus Kenny Omega. And am I wrong in saying that it's a main event for any promotion anywhere on the planet? Any pay-per-view, it can main event the Tokyo Dome. That is actually a match that I could see main eventing a WrestleMania with story build, and nobody would even bat an eyelash. Two tremendous wrestlers, and that goes all the way. So the fact that they open the show, and I'm not saying that I don't appreciate a good opener. I'm just saying make people watch the whole show.
Right.
And the show was great. It was a really another good episode of Dynamite. Not complaining about the show, but I mean, I would have made that the main event because it's a main event.
Yeah.
Anyways, coming out of that match, though, we kind of got the tip the hand. MJF looks like he'll be defending the AEW World Championship at Dynasty against the cleaner, the best bout machine, Kenny Omega. Your thoughts, Ken M?
I was hoping Swerve won because I think that would have created a lot more interesting storylines. But that said, I'm not mad about Omega MJF. They're going to have a great program. It's going to be a phenomenal match. So I'm not mad about that, but thinking about what Swerve has been doing, and especially on his Most Dangerous Man gimmick, I thought if he had won and got the EVP power, that would have been a really cool element to his character moving forward.
Agreed. Sammy, your thoughts on the Swerve Strickland Kenny Omega match and Kenny Omega versus MJF at Dynasty?
I mean, the match was phenomenal, but like you said, this should have been the main event of Dynamite. I mean, this could have been a main event, like you said, of anything. So should have been the main event of Dynamite. But again, Tony Khan, has done, him and the team at AEW, they make great strides over the past basically a year where we're kind of at, things started to really turn around there and then, kind of build it anyway. But yeah, just those weird kind of just quirks, they just keep popping in, and that's one of them. But I think it's time. It's time for Kenny Omega to be right solidly at that top of the card again. So I don't think he's going to win this match, but I hope he doesn't just kind of start to fall back down a little bit. I think it's time he has a sustained run at the top. So maybe they do this and then they run it back, fairly quickly or something like that. Because Kenny Omega, he's been up and down all around on AEW roster for a long time now. And then he had a long bout with being out recovering from a multitude of things. And, how many miles has he got left? It's time for him to have a sustained run at the top so we get to enjoy it before we can't enjoy it anymore.
Yeah, my only fear, okay, to be quite fair, my only fear is that they might try to pull the Hangman Page gimmick here. and make it so Kenny Omega can't challenge for the title again. I hope that's not the case, because I get it for working for Hangman, and I don't, I believe you can get out of it. But like, if we keep, thinning out, especially the guys who built the company, that's kind of a bad neighborhood for me. So I hope they don't do that. I don't think they will. I think this was a smart move based on the fact that if you think about it, the pay-per-view is 2 weeks from this Sunday.
Yep.
Because it's on the 12th of April. So you do have to have a quick turnaround here. I do like the fact that Kenny Omega makes sense in the fact that you can plug and play him in. Swerve Strickland, not that he wouldn't be able to be plugged and played, but I'd like a longer build. Because Swerve is a guy I like the long build for. Not saying I don't like long builds with Kenny Omega. Just saying in this case it works out better. You've already got a stacked card because you have 3 matches announced for Dynasty, which giving them credit. We were super happy when they built that long card for a Revolution. And now they're taking a shorter amount of time to turn around, a little over a month, and they've already built a strong card. They have 3 matches announced, all of them strong. MJF, Kenny Omega, obviously world title match. Jon Moxley and Will Ospreay.
Yep.
That is not announced for the title. It doesn't need to be for a title. It just needs to be Jon Moxley versus Will Ospreay because this is a grudge match. And then, of course, the World Tag Team Championships will be on the line, FTR versus Cope and Cage. So they have a strong setup, even in a short period of time. And once again, when you start off with those 3 matches, Dynasty is looking to shape up good. Or do you think they're off on a good footing to kick off Dynasty, Sammy?
Yeah, I mean, there was the news that Tekla just got a new deal. I mean, obviously she's champion there, so she's going to end up with a prominent spot on that card. Not that she wouldn't, just because she signed a new deal. She's just going to because she's an amazing wrestler. She's going to end up there. Willow probably will end up on this card. There's a lot of people that have been working really hard and doing really good things over the past few months, and it's going to shape up to be a good card. It really is. AEW's having a strong year.
Good.
Yeah, I would say for the most part, they've been really, hitting all the bullseyes. I think that they have really built this up with good storylines, which is one thing that we've wanted to see out of them. I mean, we know the in-ring product is always going to be great. However, we'd like to have a little something more to it to be invested. I think what they've done with the 3 matches that have been officially locked in, I think they've done a solid job about doing that. So we are getting somewhere. And much to Sammy's point, Tekla is now going to be champion, and whoever she's going to be in a program with, that's going to be something, because we know Toni Storm is out for indefinitely right now. So there's going to be a void in that main event scene in the women's division, but they have such a talented roster. Somebody's going to step up and really put on a good program there. They have a lot of momentum in their favor. They just got to keep it going and really make it from top to bottom, bell to bell, the best card and best shows they can do. And they're winning the fans over the ones that were skeptical about coming back. Not the sickos. The sickos have been there day one. You don't have to appease them. They're going to show up because they've been there so loyal for so long. You need to try getting that new audience that's been disconnected from WWE that wants to see something different. And as long as you're doing shows like this, you're going to win them over. Agreed,
and more agreed. And of course, they are going to have a little longer of a break coming up because Double or Nothing isn't until May 24th. So it's going to be another one. By the way, coming to you from Arthur Ashe, Queens, New York. So a new home for Double or Nothing.
Yes,
I'm excited about that. And I think we've been talking about how they can't keep destroying, building territories. It has been a little while since they've been at Arthur Ashe. This is going to be a big show out. And I think, listen, I'm going to say it, AEW is still on the right path. And if you have fallen off of the products, maybe give it another shot, because honestly, they are doing storylines a lot better. The in-ring stuff has always been good, and they're starting to make some strides, in my opinion.
Ran out of dream matches. They had to start telling stories.
Hey, listen, I'm all for it. If that's what caused, honestly, if you're being honest, I know you're being honest with that, but if that's what caused all of this, I'm fine. I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's talk about somebody. Let's get a little bit of editorialization. I mean, we're going to end the show talking about a company that is no longer with us, World Championship Wrestling. But before we get there, I want to talk about a company that we have not been talking a lot about. I chose those words on purpose, and that would be Total Nonstop Action, TNA. TNA Wrestling, we are about 2 full months into their deal over there on AMC, Thursday Night Impact, coming up after the show goes off the air. The ratings have been decent for the time slot and what they're doing. I'm not saying they're tremendous, decent, not bad, not failing. I think right where we all kind of expected them to be. But I will say this, and this is where I want to open the conversation with. 2 months in, and I think the buzz has been gone. There's not a lot of buzz going on, in my opinion. I'm not hearing the chattering about Total Nonstop Action in the Thursday night show. We thought that this was going to be a great opportunity, and in my opinion, I think that I don't know who to blame. Maybe we can hash this out, but I think that they kind of dropped some of the momentum, in my opinion, because they were the belle of the ball come my birthday. January 15th was their first show on AMC. And now it's crickets as far as people talking about the show. Am I wrong? Am I right? What is your take? We'll start with you, Ken.
I think the problem is they're comfortable being comfortable. And I think that since it's not broke, they don't need to try elevating it into a new model, which is good and bad. I think the product has been solid, but like you touched upon, it hasn't taken that big wow jump, when somebody's really taken off with a promotion. If you tune into the show, you're going to get a very solid product, top to bottom. But is there enough for you after you've already had, at this stage of the week, Monday Night Raw, NXT Tuesday, AEW Dynamite? Factor in a pay-per-view on a Sunday too. So now you're already on a fourth day of wrestling.
Well, even worse than that, if you go back to the week that was, because you got to go back from week to week. You got Friday Night SmackDown, you have Saturday Collision, you, as you pointed out, possibly a pay-per-view, more than likely on one of those days. Then you have those shows as well. It is a lot of wrestling content out there. It's easy to get lost in the shuffle, to your point.
Right. So what you need to do is you need to really branch out and tap into the forbidden door. Maybe build some storylines off of NXT, maybe, wherever you can kind of dabble in a little bit, because what you're doing is you're competing against an audience that already is having a slight bit of fatigue. Not saying, obviously, wrestling fans will watch everything, but you think for 6 days of 7 in a week, that's a lot to ask for somebody to tune in. You really got to give them some incentive. Are you really building up stars to make that crossover to really get new viewers in? And I think that's something TNA has kind of struggled because they've always relied on word of mouth. And that's great. But at some point, you have to make a break to try getting a new audience. And we said this about AEW way back when. They were just trying to go off word of mouth, and the matches were great and all that. But at some point, you need to start branching out and getting an audience in. And because your diehards are going to be there. They're the ones showing up every Thursday. But you have to do something to get there. I think they're doing a smart play right now because for the NXT show at MSG next week, Mike Santana is going to be in a 6-man tag. So now your champion is on a different show. That'll draw in some eyes if he does a great performance, which obviously Mike's going to do. And then that'll bring some people to the show maybe on Thursday. So it's going to be a small amount. Am I going to say it's going to swing a whole percentage point? No, but you're going to bring more people over because of that performance. The more you dabble in stuff like that, I think that's a big win for them.
Glad you brought that up. They were hitting a lot more home runs, if you will, when the NXT deal and the WWE deal was more in the forefront. It has taken a little bit of a backseat. Not that there's not still a deal there, but it's just taken a little bit more of a backseat. Sammy, what's your thoughts on TNA Wrestling and the state of the union, if you will, 2 months into the AMC deal?
Cautious. It's been very cautious. Has the storytelling been bad? No, not really. Have the matches been bad? No, not really. Everything's been fine, but it needs a spark. And when they made the move, we talked about avoid doing something dumb, avoid going out and spending all this new money on a big signing or completely reinventing everything, and just focus on your product and focus on your production quality and your writing and everything. Focus on all the stuff that you don't really necessarily see it, you just experience it. And they've done that. It does present well. The storytelling has been good and everything, but it might be time where you do need to do a spark. And you have to do it in the right way, though, because obviously free agency in wrestling is hyper competitive now. Even indie bookings, can be hyper competitive. So where do you turn to? And it's tough because the one person you would think that would make a lot of sense and would be a spark would be Karrion Kross, but there's been just no real interest in that really happening. So I don't really know how you it's because you can't say turn things around, but it's how do you turn up the volume on TNA? And I don't really know how you get there right now. Obviously, keep doing what you're doing. It is working. But without the ability to bring somebody in with just a different perspective, and they don't need to be the guy, just someone in the room that's just pitching different ideas, pitching something that's just crazy, just making people think that it's crazy, and you don't have to do it, but just something like that, or even just on from a talent perspective, trying to find some sort of a free agent that actually causes an impact on Impact. It needs a spark.
That is interesting. not to get off topic here, but I think we've all touched on TNA and where we're at. The Karrion Kross thing you brought up, or Killer Cross, whatever you want to call him.
Killer Cross. Yeah.
The thing is, I'm intrigued by that. Like, you had the world by the balls. Really, 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 like, you could have hit the ground running in so many different ways. It almost feels like he just stepped away because you don't see him advertise much. You don't see him on many big cards. I know he's done some GCW appearances. He's done other indie appearances. But, like, it's not that Cardona, Cody Rhodes, tried and true, go out there, tear the world on fire, make yourself undeniable either.
What if you think that he's the voice that's talking to Randy Orton?
I mean, I think Sammy brought that up.
Yeah. I think Sammy might have been onto something. Maybe
Sammy
that's how you
brought that
slide him
up.
back in.
Right, but I mean,
that's a hell of a long.
It's a hell of a long-term gamble.
Yeah.
But my point of the matter is, it's like when those other guys were out, like, they made themselves. Even Drew McIntyre, another perfect point. Like, there is a pathway back to the top, and it's been shown by a bunch of different people. And it's just weird to me that, and for no other reason than he's also not capitalizing on what should be a good financial turnout, right? I don't know. Am I wrong?
Well, I mean, I think it just depends on where he's at and what he wants to do. If there's anything outside of wrestling right now, I mean, he's still doing indie dates, but I agree with you. He's not going the Drew McIntyre route, the Cody Rhodes route, that was working every place. I think it's just in a situation for him. He's doing what he thinks is comfortable. And then, maybe he's obviously probably still talking with AEW and WWE because he's still, I would say, arguably the loudest free agent on the market right now, as far as independent wrestlers, that he would be the big star buzz that you could add to your organization. So I don't know. It's kind of tricky, but he always plays his own trail. So it's like, I think he's just doing things his way. And if he's gearing up to make some waves there for spring break there, is he on the collective yet or no?
I don't know if they've announced him. I do know, to be fair to people out there, I do know that he is the MLW champion.
Okay.
He is the MLW champion. But with that being said, he's only wrestled 6 times this year, according to Cage Match. 6 times, and only twice for MLW. So his first match of 2026 was on January 29th in the Battle Riot. That's where he won the MLW World Heavyweight Championship in Battle Riot.
Okay.
He then would wrestle for Wrestling Revolver on 2/5/26, defending the MLW World Heavyweight Championship against Bear Bronson. Then on 2/7, so February 7th, he would wrestle on the MLW CMLL, so MLW Lucha Apocalyptico, so the joint show that they did. He would wrestle and defend in a no contest, he would defend the title against Matt Riddle. Then March 1st, he wrestled for in the RPW heavyweight title match, where he dropped the belt. He was RPW champion. He was defeated by Florentine Popa to win. And then on March 14th, he fought in a 3-way for the ACW heavyweight championship match and would become the ACW heavyweight champion, defeating Richard Holliday and Mike Santana. And then on March 24th, he was in the Big Deal Battle Royal for their vacant title, and he won that. The last person he eliminated was Matt Taven. Just throwing it out there. So he has some titles under it. So Big Deal champion, ACW champion, MLW champion, but he's only wrestled 6 times this year. And I mean, I think
it's a little slightly scary from my perspective. And we're moving into WrestleMania season. What comes after WrestleMania season? It's the releases. It's roster releases. That's what happens next. And the free agent pool tends to get very large. And which company has done significant scouting of WWE's talent pool? That would be TNA. So maybe that's what TNA is doing. They're just waiting and biding their time for that to happen, because unfortunately it happens every year, and it happens after WrestleMania. And it's awful. It hurts. It's painful, but it is opportunity for people. But if Killer Cross is still sitting out there when you have that whole new crop of talent that's available, you get lost. And I don't love that, because, he's an amazing talent, and he loves me, as we learned in New York.
Yeah. I'm with you. Thoughts, Ken?
No, I mean, I agree with Sammy. I mean, that's the one thing, but like I said, he's always done things his way. So I think as long as he's comfortable, Scarlett's comfortable, they're fine. And I think they're just kind of waiting out to see what happens. Because like you touched upon, unfortunately, release season is coming.
Looming.
And then, So that's the only thing that maybe he's kind of waiting to see what plays out there, and then depending on who wants to slide in and try picking up talent, whether it's AEW, whether it's TNA, whether he wants to go. Maybe then that'll be the point that he wants to go and do the world tour and really get himself back out there. It's hard to say, but the thing is, wherever he goes on the indie scene right now, he is a draw. And I know that he's planning on doing a big match out in Vegas that week. He was teasing something on Instagram. That's why I can't remember.
Yeah, it's not. He's so far is not. So far he is not announced for anything Game Changer Wrestling WrestleMania weekend, including Josh Barnett's Bloodsport. I just looked it over the whole cards because starting. I mean, we'll be talking about this more when we get to a WrestleMania season. But so far announced for Game Changer Wrestling's collective is GCW MDK Fight Club, Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, Gringo Locos The World on Lucha. Joey Janela's Spring Break, of course, and then of course the next night, the night after wrestling, and then that midnight show, of course, Joey Janela's Spring Break, the Immortal Cluster, and then of course Effie's Big Gay Brunch to end out the WrestleMania weekend. He's not announced for any of those shows as of right now. Obviously, we're a little ways away still. I was surprised he wasn't on Bloodsport. Quite frankly.
Yeah. Well, like I said, he was talking some match, and I apologize.
I'm sure he's going to be there. It is his hometown.
Oh, yeah. No, but that's
I'm sure he's going to show up and show out. But I think it's weird that here we are in 2026 and he's wrestled 6 times.
Oh, I grant you. That's what I say. But he's got something planned up. But that's why I said whatever he's teasing for his appearance thus far, I think he's going to be on multiple shows that week. I think that's kind of where we're going to see him get that resurgence and whatever he wants to do after that.
By the way, Bloodsport, Timothy Thatcher versus Charlie Dempsey.
Oh, geez.
I just want to throw that. And Masato Tanaka versus Pete Dunne. I just throw it out there.
Let's go.
We're going to be talking about those things later on. All right. We got to close the show out on the editorial. I know we kind of got sidetracked there because of course, Sammy's love for Karrion Kross / Killer Kross had her catching the vapors, if you will, and talking about Killer Kross. Let's dive into this, though. It is today marks the 25th anniversary of the last Monday Nitro, so the death of WCW.
Wow.
25 years ago, it was March the 26th of 2001, when infamously Vincent Kennedy McMahon would be on the simulcast and talk about how he choked his his competition and bought WCW, to only find out that the contract said McMahon, but it said Shane McMahon. Anyways, one of the biggest botches of all time being the invasion angle, by the way, no fault to WWE, more fault to something that I know Ken is going to talk about, and that would be guaranteed contracts. We'll talk about that in a minute. However, WCW controversial in a lot of ways, because a lot of people like to bring WCW up, the big 83 weeks where they defeated World Wrestling Entertainment / Wrestling Federation, because there was a change in there. They defeated them for 83 weeks off of the New World Order, specifically. So there's a lot of things that I know. Sammy, I'm going to turn it over to you first, because this was your brain trust. You wanted to talk about World Championship Wrestling on the 25th anniversary of its demise. What do you have to say about World Championship Wrestling? 25 years past its death.
Yeah, so WCW obviously was like a time and a place where it just became so red hot and they could do no wrong. If you go back and watch it now, you can see where there was things that were wrong, but nobody cared. Everybody was just tuning in every week, each and every week, in and out. But looking at it with the 25-year lens, what really is the legacy of WCW? Is it the fact that they kicked down the door and pushed Vince McMahon to the brink of losing his company? No, not really. Not really. We've seen the demise of WCW talked about time and time. I don't even know how many times Eric Bischoff has talked about it and how many different interviews he's done.
There's a Vice documentary on it called "Who Killed WCW."
Yeah, there's so many of them now. But so here we are 25 years later. What really is the legacy of WCW? And I think, it's easy to say what it is, and that's Dusty Rhodes. It's Dusty Rhodes. He is still all over wrestling. And look at the things that WWE has embraced from Dusty Rhodes. We have the War Games match now. Dusty Rhodes, all the guys that are at the main event, they always talk about how Dusty Rhodes was such a big influence on my career, because he was there working there at that time period where those guys were all young and in their years. Cody Rhodes has become the guy of WWE. And I know Dusty was all over wrestling at the time. He wasn't just a WCW mainstay, but I really think that it's just he's the legacy of WCW because WWE has finally embraced WCW and embraced Dusty.
I think that that's a great retelling of history that WWE would love everybody to believe. Because I think that, because Dusty, mind you, I love Dusty Rhodes. It has nothing to do with Dusty. Dusty was more of a staple when it was Jim Crockett Promotions. He only had the book for WCW very early on before it went over to Kevin Sullivan.
Mm-hmm.
So to say they shaped it, I think that that's a lot of revisionist WWE documentary stuff. That's just my opinion, because I think the legacy of WCW itself is overhyped in its own. There is really no legacy. The 83 weeks and it's played out because Eric Bischoff has milked that for everything it was worth. There was one good idea ever in the history of World Championship Wrestling. I'm not talking about Jim Crockett Promotions. Mm-hmm. Jim Crockett Promotions is a whole nother beast. And I'm not saying that they didn't make mistakes either, but even from the inception of WCW, there was mistakes. Should I say the Shockmaster? And by the way, that wasn't even Dusty at the book. That was when Ole Anderson had the book.
Yep.
So like, I think that there was a lot. I mean, although granted, let's be honest, Dusty also has to take some L's here too, because he watched the Wizard of as Kevin Nash likes to tell it. He must have been on something watching the Wizard of Oz, because then he saw Kevin Nash. He's like, "You gonna be Oz, Daddy?" And to which Kevin Nash is like, that Oz isn't the wizard, it's the place, right? How am I going to be a place? Oh, baby, you're gonna be Oz. So I just don't think that is the problem. I think their legacy has been overhyped in a lot of ways. I think the legacy that Ken's about to say, because I know what he's saying, because I just know what he's going to say, is probably more there, but it's been the NWO is the legacy, and they kind of foddered that away.
The legacy of WCW is the NWO, good, bad, indifferent. And I think it showed what one idea could spark, and then how you don't know how to finish. And that was the problem with the NWO, because at this time, you had WCW with the Dusty era. I would say that was when it was on TBS, Superstation, that Saturday night.
It was like right after Ole.
Right. But that,
like, he had it when Jim Crockett Promotions was there, which was good.
Right.
He was the booker. Then Ole was the booker when Ted Turner first took over and bought it. And then they did go back to Dusty for a brief moment in time.
But once they went to WCW Nitro,
that was Eric Bischoff and Kevin Sullivan.
Yeah, right. That's where I say that's where the legacy cuts off, because the Dusty era of NWA/WCW, yeah, that stuff was a lot of the innovation that Triple H and company have tried instilling today into the program. The good stuff, I'll say.
You got a bicycle.
Yeah. But once you got to WCW, Ted Turner, Bischoff, Sullivan booking, that's where people remember WCW for. But it is that good, bad, and indifferent, because the good is, they introduced a lot of the Lucha Libre style to the American audience when you had Rey Mysterio and Psychosis and Juventud and, the great cruiserweight division open up every Nitro. But then you went to the bad, because then you had the guaranteed contracts, you had the creative control, and you had one idea that everybody wanted to be a part of, and it spiraled so far out of control that your heel faction, that was the NWO, became the cool faction, and the fans didn't want to cheer for anybody saving WCW. It got to the point that they spun it out into its own separate Wolfpack faction. So then you had 3 factions all fighting against each other, but the fans only cared about 2. The only time WCW was relevant in this point was DDP, because he is probably if you want to say WCW legacy, he's probably the legacy there, because he was the one that
Flair.
Well, Flair too,
but he got fired a lot by Eric Bischoff.
But Flair is a legacy onto himself.
Yeah.
But you think about a star that was made by WCW. That's DDP.
Yeah, I agree.
Booker T is there too, but Booker T owes a lot to Vince Russo, because when Russo, but you think about when Russo took the book and, good, bad, and different there, that's where Booker T became the five-time champion. But I think, though, the WCW legacy that we know if you ask casual fans, they'll say it's the NWO. But it also led to a lot of problematic stuff because Starrcade 97, the Goldberg streak, the finger poke of doom, it led to a
Vince
lot
Russo's title run, David
Yeah.
Arquette's title run. Which
Yeah.
we love you, David Arquette. But
yeah, I mean, it led to a lot of highs and lows. So I think in closing with it, I think the legacy is it showed you what could work and what didn't work for any federation and promotion moving forward.
I will say this though. If anybody takes the positive of Dusty, that's always amazing. I think Dusty's lasting legacy will be as one of the biggest draws in the entirety of wrestling, and most important people, as probably Ric Flair's greatest rival. And that's saying something because you had to have the common man going up against Ric Flair, and that's perfect. They think they were the greatest foil of all time, and that's to mention amazing in-ring chemistry. So, and in-ring performers are always going to take from Dusty if they're smart, because Dusty was amazing. But I think his biggest legacy is NXT, because when he got to NXT, look at the stars of this business.
Yeah,
they all roads, pun intended, lead to Dusty. Everybody, we talk about Roman Reigns. There ain't no Roman Reigns without Dusty Rhodes. There ain't no Seth Rollins without Dusty Rhodes. There ain't no, and you can change the channel. There ain't no John Moxley in the way that he understands the business without Dusty Rhodes. Obviously, Cody Rhodes is, a direct product of it. But I mean, there is so many, and then look at the women's revolution.
Yep.
The women's revolution is down to two people, in my honest opinion, and I'm not taking anything away from anybody, but it was Fit Finlay who fought for those women for years and got when everybody was crapping on divas, and he was the one that was in charge of that division, so he fought for them in everything that they ever got. So you have to give him his credit. And then Dusty Rhodes, because the NXT revolution is the reason why we had the women's revolution in pro wrestling, and the reason why Charlotte Flair is Charlotte Flair, and Bayley and Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks, aka Mercedes Moné, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think the legacy of I would never down talk the legacy of Dusty Rhodes, because I think Dusty Rhodes is one of, if not the most important figures in all of pro wrestling. I think to modern wrestling, he is the most important, because without Dusty Rhodes, you also have no Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman was a Dusty Rhodes guy. Yeah. Remember famously how Paul Heyman got his break was sitting in on WCW meetings he wasn't a part of. And when he got called out by Dusty, he knew enough about Dusty to go, I just wanted to learn from the greatest booker of all time. And Dusty's response was, oh, you came to the right place, Daddy. You're going to sit there in the back of the room and you're going to learn. You're going to learn all you need to learn about booking, Daddy. Because Dusty was amazing at what Dusty did. And we know this now, and I don't think so. To your point, Sammy, I think that Dusty unto himself is the most important, and I do think that WWE and the revisionist theories have really giving him in a good positive way the bright side of saying the best of WCW was actually on Dusty, when in reality, unfortunately, he only had the book for a very short period of time. And I think that if he would have had the book and not Kevin Sullivan, maybe things would have been different. And I'm not really crapping on Kevin Sullivan. I just never liked his booking.
Yeah.
I mean, he is the guy that got outsmarted in booking by one Brian Pillman, who worked all of them into thinking it was an angle of him leaving. I mean, then again, Ole Anderson also got Kevin Nash told him he wanted to retire from wrestling and go play basketball in Europe, and gave him his release so he could show up as Diesel on Raw the very next week.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of I think mismanagement is really their strong suit in WCW, but there's no doubt that it was a place. There was 13 million plus wrestling fans, or maybe not wrestling fans, but fans watching wrestling on Monday nights. We've never seen that before or since.
Yeah.
I think that the legacy of WCW would have been a little more advantageous if Dusty was a bigger part of it. I think that it would have been a little more advantageous if there was a real businessman a part of it, because those guaranteed contracts and creative control really screwed them. Whether they want to talk about it or not, it did. Because think about it, that's what screwed WWE in the acquisition. All those guys got to sit home with their guaranteed contracts instead of signing with WWE, and having, so it ruined the invasion, because the only guys that wanted to come over were DDP and Booker T.
Yeah.
Of stars. Everybody else, I mean, you're not going to fill out stars with Sean Stasiak. And that's why they had to add ECW into the mix, because they were trying anything they could, because they didn't have, Goldberg and Nash and Hogan and Hall and Sting and Big Papa Pump. Some of them would come later on, actually most of them.
Yeah.
but some of them were past their shelf life too. Let's be honest. We could all forget about when Big Papa Pump was there.
Yeah.
Just throwing it out there. Yeah. Sammy, you want to button it up?
WCW.
WCW.
WCW. I mean, it's WCW. I mean, WWE does a good job, keeping it alive in a lot of ways. They have embraced some of the match types. They, there's its own YouTube channel, and obviously the WWE Vault, they do a good job of things. And Dusty Rhodes, all over. He's got his fingerprints all over, not just WWE, all over wrestling.
Absolutely.
You go listen to any legacy, wrestler on a Chris Van Vliet, and you probably only have to go about 20 minutes into it, and they probably said it's Dusty more than once. It's an important part of history. It's an important part of wrestling history. WWE learned a lot from that time period, and other companies as well. Ring of Honor, AEW now, TNA. None of that stuff wouldn't exist if it wasn't for WCW. So,
to an extent, yeah, I agree with that. I mean, Ring of Honor is more of a byproduct of ECW. Because they ran out of Philly.
Yeah.
When it first came around. Filling a void in a hole, but doing it differently because it wasn't, well, actually not really doing it different, doing it the side of that's a whole other conversation we get into because if you really want to know, the ECW, the fingerprints of ECW are more all over modern wrestling than WCW ever will be.
Mm-hmm.
Not more than Dusty Rhodes, the person, but as a company. Hence why ECW is still chanted places because that little company that could brought a lot to the table. Once again, though, there is no ECW without Dusty Rhodes. Right. That's a conversation that we should have some other time to really go in, because I really do believe that Dusty Rhodes is the most important figure in modern wrestling. More important than Vince McMahon, more important than Triple H, more important than there isn't a person that he's not more important to in modern wrestling, because without Dusty Rhodes, we have none of what we have in 2026. Not just match types. Match types are correct. That's why I just don't saddle him with WCW, because I feel like the failures of WCW have nothing to do with Dusty. And unfortunately, I guess maybe that's just me protecting Dusty. But once again, also he didn't have the book as long as most of us thought. I don't know why they switched to Kevin Sullivan, quite frankly.
Reasons.
And then switched back to him again.
Yep.
And then again. I mean, I understand why they went from Kevin Nash to Kevin Sullivan.
Yeah.
No offense to Big Sexy, but he did book himself over on the undefeated world champion. I'm just throwing it out there. He did what every indie promoter known to man has done since the dawn of time, baby.
Yep.
Woo! But yeah, no, I agree with you, Sammy, though, as far as we should get into, sometime we should get, because I don't think I would like to debate or try to find an argument of anybody who is more important to pro wrestling than Dusty Rhodes, like in the modern era, because you could make arguments.
Right. I was gonna say, how far back do you really want to stretch it?
Right. But even then, I would say Dusty's, without really going too far in depth, I would say Dusty's probably top 3 all time, easy, and maybe still number 1, but top 3 all time.
It's a great debate.
Because you can only go back so far, right?
I guess you go back to the WrestleMania era, really, right? I mean, that's
for Dusty, yeah. But think about it, WrestleMania was forged out of Starrcade,
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we all credit, like WrestleMania worked, congratulations, it worked, and that's why we have WWE today, right? But if you think about it, they didn't have those balls. Starrcade was done first. Granted, Dusty wasn't the champion there, but Dusty, I don't know if he had the book or not, but he has an intricate part of booking that show.
Yeah.
Because obviously the main event of that show was Flair for the gold. So it was Flair versus Harley Race in the cage.
Mm-hmm.
But Starrcade, the original Starrcade, was the first wrestling major pay-per-view before WrestleMania.
It's true. And
without the success of Starrcade, I don't think WWE had the balls to throw WrestleMania. Also, they sold that Saturday slot back to get the funding. So they basically, Jim Crockett did pay for it. So once again, mismanagement, even when it was just Jim Crockett Promotions. But I feel like WCW's legacy of Jim Crockett Promotions was, we could get in that argument another time too. Because I feel like that's something I should stick on the docket for. If you guys want to hear that, I think that'd be great. Let us know. Chat and everything in the comments. For those of you who are watching not live, let us know if you want to hear about that, because I think that could be an intriguing thing to see. Jim Crockett Promotions was way above his time. And in a lot of ways, way greater than WCW ever was.
Yeah.
However, we are going to come to the end of the show. And make sure, if you are watching this live, drop in those comments what you think. Maybe you have a totally different take. I'm all about takes. Let's go. Let's do them. And of course, make sure you head over to fanlightzone.com because that powers this whole shindig, as well as make sure you follow us on all the social medias, especially if you're watching us right now on X or over on Twitch, because those are both places where the live show happens. And then, of course, if you are here on YouTube, if you're not here on YouTube, get yourself over to YouTube. But if you are already on YouTube, make sure you smash that subscribe button, click the bell icon for notifications so we know whenever you go live or whenever a new video goes up. And of course, hit that thumbs up to help us conquer the algorithm and wrestle it into submission so we don't go the way of WCW. Would that be, by the way, that would be all on Ken M.
Mm-hmm.
He is the booker here.
This is true.
So therefore, if it goes under, he is your Eric Bischoff, ladies and gentlemen. Just throwing it out there.
I'm back.
you almost got the hair coloring if you don't
almost.
dye it.
Yeah, I know.
Don't dye it black.
No.
But you almost got his hair coloring now.
I'm going for the salt and pepper.
There you go.
Yep.
You gotta love it.
Yep.
I did that with my beard. You know what I mean? I don't have any hair on top. So.
Yeah.
With that being said, though, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back next week, still staying on the road to WrestleMania, talking about All Elite Wrestling, total nonstop wrestling, game changer wrestling, and more. If it is happening in the world of pro wrestling, you better bet your ass we'll have a take on it, and it will be in stereo audio for those of you who are listening to us instead of just watching us. But until then, for myself, for Miss Sammy, for Ken M, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and most importantly, until next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on the Fanlight Zone YouTube channel. Later, wrestling fans.